Welcome back to the channel. This is Simon Cromer, and today I will be sharing with you guys the difference between freshwater versus saltwater environments and what they do to your boat. And more specifically, we will be focusing on the Great Lakes versus South Florida. So I will not be talking about freshwater environments in Arizona in the desert, nor will I be talking about saltwater environments in California because I simply have not detailed in those places. But where I have detailed is in the Great Lakes for 2 years and in South Florida for 1 year. So it is mid-November, which means I have been in Florida for 1 year. And when I first got started, I moved down here, I moved to the East Coast, and I was in the Fort Lauderdale area for a few months before I decided to settle home in February in Cape Coral. So if you guys have been following along, you probably are aware of this. And before we get started, I just want to let you guys know, if you haven't subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button now and be sure to turn on bell notifications so that every single time I release a video, you will be notified. Now, this video is going to be set up in different sections. So we're going to talk about freshwater, saltwater environments. We're going to talk about my experience, and then we're going to talk about how to maintain your boats in these environments. Now, if you are a boat detailer and you are considering making the move to South Florida or any part of Florida, you're going to want to watch this video and learn from my experiences and see, do you still want to move to this kind of environment? Now, if you are a boat owner or a current boat owner who has a boat in South Florida, or you want to own a boat in South Florida, this also is going to be a great video because we will be covering maintenance, and that is very important in these different environments to make sure you're keeping up on your boat so that you can get the longest amount of protection out of your surfaces. And with that said, guys, let's go ahead and talk about freshwater versus saltwater environments and what makes these environments very different. A freshwater environment versus a saltwater environment. What is the key difference here? Well, the key difference is salt in the water. And what does salt do to your boat? Well, salt rapidly deteriorates surfaces. So when we talk about gel coat oxidation, it's going to be increased. When we talk about oxidation to your brightwork, it's going to be increased. And this is a common issue down here in South Florida, is rusting to the brightwork. And this is simply due to salt. So we want to make sure we keep salt off the boat at all times. This is a major issue, and salt is going to deteriorate your surfaces. So never just let salt sit on your boats for months after month after month. Always clean your boat, wash your boat, and take good care of your boat. Now, the next thing up we're going to talk about is sunlight intensity. Now, if you are in the Great Lakes, you are very fortunate to have a moderate sunlight intensity because you're simply further away from the equator. But on the flip side, if you are in South Florida, you're going to be closer to the equator and have a more intense sunlight. And sun does a lot of damages to your boat. Now, one thing that sun does is it dissolves gel coat, it dissolves clear coat. So if you have a car sitting out in the sun for many, many years down here in Florida, your clear coat will disappear. And so will your gel coat. If you have a hard top, say goodbye to your gel coat if you let it just sit out in the sun. So always get a canopy, always have a cover over your boat. It's definitely going to help, or have a ceramic coating or a polymer protection to protect your surfaces from the sun. Now, another thing I notice is that vinyl and plastic. So plastics are going to fade very fast, and vinyl is going to have sun damage if you leave it out to exposed sun in only a couple of years. So super, super intense sun down here in Florida causes a lot of problems and rapidifies oxidation. Now, the next one up is going to be the amount of rainfall. And again, if you're in the Great Lakes, you are fortunate to have a moderate rainfall. And oftentimes in July, in August, you're going to have a decreased or a below average rainfall. So rain does a little bit of issues, not as much as sun or salt is going to do, but we will get to that. Now, down here in South Florida in the summer, we pretty much get rain every day. In dry season, not so much, but rain does cause a lot of issues. Now, what does rain do? Well, if you have oxidation on your boat, your gel coat is porous. So what this is going to do is all that water is just going to absorb into your boat, and it's going to further increase oxidation, especially when that sun comes back out and the humidity heats back up again. Also, this is going to lead to mold and mildew. With the rain, with the heat, a lot of mold and mildew is going to be happening. So rain does cause some issues. Again, you are very fortunate if you're up north and you're in the Great Lakes because mold and mildew, not an issue. Rain, not going to really affect your boat a whole lot. Down here, a little bit of a different story. It's going to create mold and mildew. You want to make sure you keep your boat clean and dry as much as often. Now, the last thing we're going to talk about is humidity. So if you're down here in South Florida, the humidity is going to be very intense, very high. And with the environment, with the rain, with the sunlight, this creates a lot of issues. Up north, you are more lucky. The humidity is moderate, but it's not very bad. not enough to cause mold or mildew problems. So really not a huge issue to worry about on the Great Lakes, but down here in Florida, a huge issue, a lot of mold and mildew, a lot of wet surfaces, right? This is what humidity does. So it definitely is a problem, and you want to make sure you are actively searching to find solutions to protect against this issue. So humidity, we talk about sunlight, we talk about rain, and we talk about salt. These are your main drivers of the differences between freshwater and saltwater environments. So let's go ahead and continue. I am going to read off my screen a little bit because I have to talk about my personal experiences and what I noticed in the Great Lakes versus South Florida. So let's go ahead and get started. One thing I noticed about the Great Lakes is there is a lot of oxidized boats, and I think the reason for that is a lot of the boat builders, a lot of the new boats are bought locally here in Florida. Then as they age and these clients are ready to get rid of their boats, they are sold for a more reasonable price, and they often find their way up north. And that also relates to the fact that there are more older boats up north. So sometimes these problems, these oxidation problems, they never get solved down here, and then they are forced up north. So if you are a detailer, you're still going to need to know how to wet sand, how to restore a boat, how to buff, polish, all that great stuff. So don't think that there are more oxidized boats down here than there are up north, because that is just simply not the case. Another thing I noticed is that the waxes, the sealants, the ceramic coatings, they last longer up on the Great Lakes, and that's just simply due to a more favorable environment conditions. And we talked about that earlier. The next thing, bugs. Well, there's not a whole lot of bugs here in Florida, but up on the Great Lakes, lots of bugs, lots of spiders year round, mayflies in June. A lot of boat washing necessary to keep your boat clean and keep it free of having spots and droppings getting into your boat and kind of staining it. So the next thing we're going to talk about is mold and mildew is a lot more rare up north off the Great Lakes, where it's much more common down here. So just not an extremely favorable environment for mold and mildew to happen up north in the Great Lakes. Another thing, water spots, pretty rare because we don't have any salt in the water. We don't have any hard water stains. Nothing we need to worry about. Something that is common, water lines. Water lines are common in the Great Lakes because of the heavy metals in the water. And finally, rust stains. Pretty much hardly ever see rust stains. Don't really need to worry about that because, again, salt is what creates these rust stains and rapidizes the oxidation process. So those are some things that I noticed from the freshwater detailing environment and up north off of the Great Lakes. Now, down south here in Florida, here are some things I noticed. Again, not as many oxidized boats due to the boats being newer and being bought brand new down here locally in Florida. Again, that means boats are newer, so more 5 to 10-year-old boats. I work on tons of new boats versus up north I worked on a lot older boats. So restoration, still handy down here for different reasons due to the environment, but you are going to be working with better gel coats most of the time. Another thing, coating and sealants, they don't last as long down here. That's pretty much expected, right? Because we have extreme sun, extreme heat, all this great stuff that is going to eliminate our coatings a lot faster. Pretty much no bugs. I mean, sometimes you'll have frogs or maybe a gecko in the boat. It's pretty rare, but no bugs to worry about. So a really, really great thing that I can finally push behind me is no bugs. Super fun. Yes, I got to deal with mold and mildew, but no more bugs, no more spiders crawling on me. That's a great thing. Mold and mildew, yes, very common down here. Grows rapidly. Pretty much happens on all your boats. And water spots, pretty common. Hard water spots, yes. If you don't spray off your boat, you don't use like a salt gun or something, and really make sure that salt is off your boat, you're gonna have hard water stains on gel coat, on glass, on different surfaces. Water lines, again, very common down here. You still have metals in the water, you have salt. So yes, you are definitely gonna get water lines. And finally, rust stains, yep, a lot more common, more oxidation, more salt. You really need to make sure you take care of this, or it's going to get very intense very quickly, and you're going to have to replace some of your fittings. So these are some of the things I noticed from South Florida. So there is a Great Lakes viewpoint, a South Florida viewpoint. You're going to see the difference right there, right off the bat. More work to maintain a boat down here in South Florida. So what can we take away from all this? Well, first of all, it is more prep work to detail a boat down here in South Florida. So as expected, you're going to have to remove rust, you're going to have to remove mold and mildew, and you're going to have to just make sure your surfaces are better and more clean before you detail your boat. You're going to have to remove water spots. Up north, you can wash your boat with a degreaser and some dish soap, and you're going to be ready to detail. So a lot more prep work involved down here, which requires more skill, more knowledge, and more products to use. Another thing is better maintenance is required down here for your coatings, your sealants, and everything to last longer, and for your boat services to last longer. So more maintenance definitely required down here. You're gonna need to put more work and time into your boat, or more work and time into your client's boat if you are a detailer. Well, also, I do have misconceptions. I had two misconceptions when I was living up on the Great Lakes about South Florida, so I will clear those up right now so that we can make sure this isn't an issue for anyone. Number one is it's harder to detail a boat in South Florida versus the Great Lakes. And that's just simply false because, again, like I said, there's a lot of oxidized boats up on the Great Lakes. So you need to know how to sand, you need to know how to buff and restore a boat. Down here, you're actually, depending on what market you're in, you could be working on newer boats most of the time. So you're going to need to be better at polishing and protection and waxes and stuff like that. So really, it's not necessarily harder to detail a boat down here. Yes, you need a little bit more knowledge, and you're going to need more products to remove some of these things, such as water spots, rust remover, right, and taking care of mold and mildew. But if you can sand, you're going to be in good shape anywhere in the detailing world. Next up is you can't work if it's too hot in Florida. That is another misconception because in July and August, when it felt like 108 degrees outside, I was out there, and yes, it was brutal, but you can still detail. If you're using Stark products, you're using Levelar, Elevate, those products work in the sunlight. You can work. As long as you can work, then you're good to work. So you don't need to worry about the products. You need to worry about yourself. Now, a few tips though is you're definitely going to want to have salt on hand. You're going to want to have electrolytes. So my favorite things are going to be salt, coconut water, and tropical fruits. That was going to keep me going and keep my electrolytes in me because sometimes I would feel like I'm going to pass out. Guys, the intensity of the sun is brutal down here, along with the humidity, and it'll take a lot away from you. So drink a lot of water, but that is a misconception. Yes, you can still work. I've never had to stop working because it's too hot out. Maintenance tips for the Great Lakes. So if you are a boat owner, now is the time to tune in. Tip number one is going to be apply a polymer sealant once a season to your boat, or a ceramic coating once every 2 seasons. So if you use a quality product such as Jescar Ultralock, you're going to be able to get away with once a season. If you use a quality ceramic coating such as Stark Repel Pro, once every 2 seasons will be good there. The next one up is going to be polish your brightwork once or twice a year. And I did both on the Great Lakes. I polished once a year. I polished twice a year. Twice a year works great if you want to keep your brightwork in excellent condition, but one will be sufficient. Now, you want to take care of your vinyl and your plastics once a month. So although we have reduced sun and reduced elements and environment, we still want to protect our vinyl once a month with a quality product such as Adams VRT or CarPro Pearl. This is going to be your best options for restoring plastics and protecting your vinyl once a month to make sure we're not having sun damage or anything like that. Now, next up is going to be wash your boat twice a month. So if you are outside and you're in the sunlight and all that great stuff, if you're in a marina, wash your boat twice a month. If you're getting a lot of bugs, this is going to be super helpful. If you're in a boathouse or something, or you're in a different situation, well, maybe once a month will be all right. Next up is going to be if you take your boat out, at the minimum, spray it down when you get back. So even if you're in the Great Lakes, it still is important to, rinse off your boat and get all the dirty water and stuff off your boat. And then when you're ready to wash, you'll be all set. And this is going to be a good way to continue your maintenance on your boat. Next, and the last one is going to be apply an SiO2 on your boat once a month. So this is going to be great for protecting and adding protection on your boat. So when we talk about protection, SiO2, well, this is compatible with ceramic coatings. And if you use a graphene ceramic coating, you'll want to go with a graphene spray. So Stark Replenish works great for Repel Pro. Stark Reboot works great for any graphene ceramic coatings. And then actually the best protection overall is going to be Ceramic DNA Regenex. So if you have Repel Pro, you have Ceramic DNA on your boat, use Regenex. This is going to be the ultimate best protection. Do that once a month. Now on to South Florida. Well, tip number one is apply a polymer sealant to your boat every 5 to 6 months and a ceramic coating to your boat about once a year. So these do fluctuate depending on your situation, but if you have an older gel coat, well, maybe only 3 or 4 months you're going to get out of your polymer if you're using Jescar Ultralock. And if you have a good quality ceramic coating, such as Stark Repel Pro, well, you might get a year, you might get 15 months, but around that range is what you're going to be getting if you're in direct sunlight. If you're under a canopy, well, things will change and your coatings will be extended. Tip number two is going to be polish your brightwork and protect it every 3 months. So every 3 months you want to polish your brightwork because we know that salt creates corrosion. And if we can polish it and we can protect it, whereas on the Great Lakes we don't really need to protect because we don't have any salt, but down here we do want to protect it. And one of the best products to use for that is going to be ceramic wax. So Ceramic DNA Luminex, that is a great product for your brightwork. going to hold off salt for a few months. 3 to 6 months is about where it's going to be at. Now, the next tip is going to be take care of vinyl and plastics once a month. But instead of just taking care of your plastics and your vinyl once a month, because we have that extreme sunlight and we have that extreme humidity, we want to search for a product to apply to protect from mold and mildew. So Xanago Marine is my favorite mold and mildew prevention system. It can protect mold and mildew for up to 90 days. So after you do all your cleaning and your protection, so if you do Adams VRT, CarPro, Pearl, then you're going to want to use the Xanago and go ahead and apply that over top of your vinyl as well for added protection. Next up is going to be wash your boat twice a month. So always, I like this one, is wash your boat twice a month, or if you're in a different situation, once a month, but kind of use your judgment on that. Next is going to be, if you take your boat out, you want to rinse your boat off, but instead of just rinsing your boat off, if you're down here in Florida in salt water, you're going to want to use Salt's Gone. Salt's Gone is going to disintegrate the salt. Washing off the boat is just not good enough. But when you're actually washing your boat with soap and stuff, I don't believe you need to use Salt's Gone. Only when you bring your boat back and you need to rinse it off, do a quick rinse off, use your Salt's Gone, you're going to be good to go. And the final tip is going to be apply an SiO2 once every month, or maybe if you have the time and energy, once every 2 weeks for added protection to your polymer sealant or to your ceramic coating. Again, ceramic DNA Regenics is going to be a great one. Start replenish, start reboot for your situation. So these are your tips for your maintenance processes on the Great Lakes versus South Florida. So take that accordingly. Now, the final thing is going to be the real question. Where do I prefer to detail? Well, actually, I do slightly prefer to detail on the Great Lakes just because the prep work is not so intense. But guys, I love South Florida. I'm not going anywhere, but that's just a detailing preference. That's pretty much going to wrap up the video. But if you are a boat owner in Southwest Florida and you like this protection plan that I have labeled up here in the video, well, go ahead and reach out to our company. You can reach out at topdockpro.com. Just fill out a quote. That is the best way to get in contact with us, and we will happily service your boat if it makes sense and if you are in drivable range for us to do so. Now, with that said, guys, if you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button now, and be sure to like the video. Be sure to drop a comment. Guys, I want to know where you're from. Are you from the Great Lakes? Are you from South Florida? Let's see where we have more followers and listeners from. And with that said, I will see you on the next video. Peace out.